We are back live. The unprecedented coverage of the 2021 inauguration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. Back with our President and CEO, Dr. Ben Chavis. We expected to be joined this hour by Denise Rolock Barnes of the Washington Informer. She was actually at the Capitol, and she's going to give us a report from the Capitol on what she saw where she was sitting and some highlights. We also expected to be joined by the Atlanta Voice and Dallas Weekly publisher Jim Washington this hour. The next hour, Danny Bakewell Sr. of the Los Angeles Sentinel will join us, and then Larry Lee of the Sacramento Observer. So, Dr. Chavis, it's been an awesome day.
It's been a great day for the Black press of America, and we thank Norman Rich, our producer. Thank you, Stacy. We thank all of the staff of the Nnpa. Thank Karen Carter Richards. It's been a great historic day, and I'm here on Pennsylvania Avenue. I hear the motorcycles from the law enforcement, the National Guard. We're broadcasting live from D.C. For the inauguration. This is a historic time. We've witnessed it now. A new president of the United States, Joe Biden, a new vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris. And so we've been on the air since 7 o'clock this morning, and we're thankful to still be on the air, and we're going to be here until later this afternoon to witness the remaining aspects. You see the honor guard, color guard is lined up for the president of the United States to exit down the east side of the Capitol to begin the procession toward the White House.
Yeah, and what a sight that is, Dr. Chavis. And when they descend down those stairs, obviously they'll be saluted as they get into their motorcade and head toward.
And then a few years later, when Lincoln was
the White House.
Yeah.
Listen in for a moment.
And this is the live stream from it.
And again, speaking of Lincoln, we're looking at the East Front steps where Lincoln was inaugurated. We actually have on display down in the Capitol Visitor Center a table.
It's stunning.
Yeah, so we have the table that Lincoln placed his notes on for his second inaugural address. And it's made from pieces of cast iron from the dome. So the cast iron, 9 million pounds of iron that makes up the dome of the Capitol. Since it's produced in pieces, there are multiples made. And if you've ever made anything using a mold yourself, you know, sometimes they don't all come out perfectly even. So there was a pile of extra pieces and cast-offs. And the workmen working on the Capitol Dome during the Civil War went through that pile of cast-offs, put together a balustrade column for the center as a pedestal for the table, some of the decorative elements for the outside to come down and make feet for it, and then they put a smooth top on it, present it to President Lincoln for his inauguration.
I think it's wonderful that American artists and artists from Italy that painted in the Capitol would often use workers in their artwork. The workers here, I love that.
Well, we even know that Constantino Romiti painted that fresco inside the Capitol Dome, used some of the iron workers for his models.
Charles Thomas, the superintendent, foreman.
Particularly for the scene of mechanics that has Vulcan at an anvil and forge, and he needed people to kind of stand in as models to represent the workers in that forge. Remember today was an
interesting day too. There was sunshine, then the clouds came a little bit, it snowed a little bit, and now the weather, I understand, is about somewhere around 30 degrees in the nation's capital.
So that you can see a little bit of the historic.
Very cold day, but a historic day.
Friends, if you were to come to Washington and walk around the Capitol, even in the evening, where to start? The building will teach you something.
And one of our viewers, Yul Anderson, he's asking, what are our expectations? I think we've been covering that. If you just joined us, the Biden administration has made a lot of promises that they've been keeping to date, and we expect to have a lot of interaction with them. And we expect them to carry out, like today, 17 executive orders. We expect him to sign today, reversing some of the things that.
Now, here's the new president of the United States, the first lady, the new vice president of the United States, and her husband.
Folks on the West Coast still couldn't watch Truman's inauguration.
historic steps to the future.
Well, that'd be nice if we could hear some of the commands. That would be nice. Yes.
We can hear the applause.
I know those two words, forward march. I think I've uttered that a time or two. Let's listen and watch.
It's the color guard representing all of the forces and armed forces of the United States. Just salute the new commander-in-chief.
Yeah, and again, as redundant as it may sound, we point out that the mask, everybody's got on mask, and there's appropriate distance.
So this is the first time the president and the first lady were riding the official presidential limousine.
Yeah.
Janet, what if I were to tell you that in one day you would have a new job and change your place of residence in the same day? What would you say to that?
Seems like a lot. And a new ride.
A new car.
And a new car there. I don't know if everyone noticed how thick those doors are when they put the president into that car, but there it is, nicknamed the Beast. Departing from the East Front, they're on their way over to Arlington Cemetery, lay a wreath.
And past two presidents while doing it. William Howard Taft and John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
The vice president getting into the car there with the flags. You know, Chairman Blunt, the JSEC announcing this 59th inaugural, spoke about this event, commonplace and miraculous, and how this stands as an assurance to all people of our continued, unbroken commitment to continuity, stability, perseverance, and democracy. We have a statue in the Visitor Center of Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
And on the base of it, a quote from one of his addresses: "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." This year's inaugural theme, selected by the JSEC, are determined democracy, forging a more perfect union.
So she's quoting Frederick Douglass, which is one of our
Display of that today.
distinguished publishers in the Black press.
As we see the vice president and the president loading into the limousines, preparing to depart here on the east front of the Capitol, following the pass and review of troops. Family members headed back as well.
You know, at times, I didn't sense a pandemic or a lot of security. At times, it seemed like, well, this is what I'm used to. But there were times in which I said, "Oh my!"
Well, I
I
think
see the difference.
this.
And there, again, as you've been watching, the president and the vice president descending the stairs from the Capitol, headed to the White House. We are joined now by the distinguished publisher, I'm trying to say, of the Washington Informer, Denise Rollock Barnes, who was actually at the inauguration. Denise, when you come off mute, why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Stacy, you said the distinguished. I thought you were going to say the frozen Denise Rollock Barnes.
It's cold out there, we know.
It was very, very cold, but it was a beautiful day. It was a great experience. I've attended two other inaugurations, both for President Barack Obama. So it was nice to see. I love that 46. It was nice to be there today. I mean, it was an exciting day, but really subdued. Because where you're used to seeing hundreds of thousands of people out there celebrating the incoming of a new president, I'd say today I probably saw maybe a couple of thousand. I don't know if an official number has been given, but those of us who are in the press, unless you're carrying a camera, you kind of are relegated to the nosebleed section in the back, in the very back, which is where I was. And it was pretty much empty back there. Several empty seats. There was press, but I guess for some, anyway. And so it just seemed that was the only part that took some adjusting. But you had many of the Congress folks there, their families, many of their staff, friends, and other diplomats from the from the local community, or from the national community. So it was a great event, and just certain things that you sort of caught along the way, or observations. I mean, I just thought it was so cool. It was like seeing two brothers on a basketball court when um, uh, President Biden came out, or President-elect Biden came out and gave a fist pump, what is it, a fist, whatever that is,
Fist bump to President Obama.
with Obama. Yeah, that was really, really great. And of course, it was just nice to even hear our own Capitol Hill police officer, Eugene
Goodman. Yes.
who was recognized and got to walk out with the president for his quick action and quick thinking. And so we had a lot of DC represented, but still, as I said before, there's a sense when you're heading to the Capitol that this is a place that's highly protected. And but once you got inside, except a couple times when I looked behind me towards the monument and saw the rows and rows of National Guards men and women behind where the Capitol was taking place, the inauguration was taking place. So, but officers from not only from the District of Columbia, Capitol Hill officers, National Guardsmen from up and down the East Coast, other police officials from other departments in the area. So the place is really well protected, and I think it needed to be, and it was a great event.
Yeah, and as you see, the motorcade, the presidential motorcade, headed down. I guess they're headed toward Pennsylvania Avenue. Denise, you mentioned the extra protection there. Obviously, in the wake of what we saw 2 weeks ago, it warranted even more protection. At least 25,000 National Guardsmen. Your DC looked quite different today than any other inauguration day.
Well, quite honestly, there's parts of DC I haven't seen in the last week or two because of the security around the downtown area and the Capitol and what have you. I mean, it's interesting because when I had to go and pick up my credentials on Friday, what seemed secure seems as, once you get up to the guardsmen and you have your conversation, I mean, we're very friendly, very welcoming, very appreciative of the fact that there were expressions of appreciation for them being there and securing the Capitol. And so while it's very militaristic and people are standing with guns and helmets and all that, there still was sort of, if I can say, a warm and fuzzy feeling about today. And it's been like that, I think, for the most part. They were there, it's interesting, to protect the building and the people that were in it or around it, and so, and it's my understanding, just talking to a couple of the Congress people, I think they were even asked to wear bulletproof vests today, some of them.
Wow.
So, and I did see several, some with their pearls in honor of the AKAs and their sister, Kamala Harris. And so, yeah, it's going to be like that for another couple of days.
Yeah.
Because, we're still a target. And I'm hoping, because I haven't heard the news, I don't know what's happening in capital cities across the country, but hopefully their day went safe as well.
Right. I'm on Pennsylvania Avenue now live, and I see the police officer, the motorcade is coming by. I think they're going to Arlington Cemetery first and then to the White House.
Okay. And Denise, so we heard President Biden's address. We saw all the other things that took place. What stood out for you being there and listening to them? Not the surroundings, but what was said, the performances, the speech by Biden. What stood out for you?
I think most importantly, I think people were there to hear Biden's speech. They wanted to hear a speech that really talked about unity, and something that would sort of lower the temperature. And a lot of, from what I gathered, is a lot of the members of Congress are ready to get back to work. I heard comments all over the place, because he's going to the White House to go to work. So people are ready to go to work and to repair this country, and they realize that there's a lot of work to be done. And I think the speeches, as well as like I said, the resounding positive response from the poet laureate, the young woman who spoke, who delivered the poem today, I mean, I think was right on the mark. Didn't hear much fanfare at all about the musical entertainment. I mean, it was probably nice that they were there, but I didn't hear much conversation about that. And it was more about, the president and his vision, and I think even more importantly, just what Vice President Kamala Harris represents to America. I mean, here you have, which I heard a lot, African American, part Asian, I mean, her background, but really being a Black woman and making this stride, which is the first, but also a man who has been trying to get to the White House for 50 years of service. That's a testament within itself. And I think people were proud that, he's the man for this time and for this season. That's the impression that I got. That's from what I heard people mentioning.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And also the colors, the purple colors that Kamala Harris wore. It was in honor of Shirley Chisholm. And it was President Biden alluded to this in his speech, the suffrage movement. Denise, he talked about the women's vote. I know that we did a series on the suffrage movement. Talk about that aspect of it, and Kamala Harris honoring Shirley Chisholm.
Well, I mean, I think that, like I said, I was in the back, Stacy and Dr. Chavis. But the thing that really resonated with me as they were, particularly as President Biden was talking about, the suffrage movement, women getting the right to vote, that as I was trying to watch the stage, 4 individuals basically sort of blocked my view. And the first thing I noticed was these really long, those long lens cameras, the huge ones, right, that they were carrying on the side. And I noticed how thick they looked because they had so many layers of clothes on. And then I noticed that they were 4 women who were shooting at that part of the program. And the whole day, I'm thinking about the role that women have played, not only in making sure that Vice President, that the president and the vice president were successful in this election, that others across this country have been successful in these elections. The women in Congress who I ran across, of course, our very own Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton from the District of Columbia, but so many others that I saw today as they were making their way and seeming really proud of what this nation has accomplished by electing an African American and a woman vice president. So I think, there's a great sense of pride, as I said before, in this achievement in America, what it means for the democratic process. And, I wasn't sure if I quite liked Amy Klobuchar's statement, but I understood what she said. She said, when you look at who was elected as our vice president, it makes you believe that anything can happen. I don't know how to do that, but I understood her point, right? And in that, all things are possible in this country. So I hope that answers your question, but that's what I observed.
Yeah. And Dr. Chavis, President Biden spoke a lot about unity. Give us your thoughts on that part of President Biden's speech.
Well, I think it was a call to unity, not only for the people at the podium in the inauguration ceremony, but his message was to all Americans. Our country is racially divided. Our country is politically divided. More than 80 million voted for Biden and Harris, but over 70 million voted for Trump and Pence. I think it was important for Mike Pence to be there today. And there were some Republican members of Congress that also attended. So I think that the challenge is there. But his speech, I thought, I agree with Denise, that his speech was a speech calling for unity. And I think there was anybody who's qualified to be president of the United States in 2021, after all of what we've been through in 2020 and what we witnessed on January the 6th, is Joe Biden. He's well qualified, over 30 years in the Senate, 8 years as vice president. He knows the terrain in the Congress, and he knows the operations in the White House. So when they pull up, they're going down to Arlington Cemetery. And when they go to the White House for the first time as president and vice president, it's not going to be a place he hasn't seen before. So he's well qualified. But I thought his speech and call to unity was on time. And the question is, what's going to be the response to his call? It's one thing for a president to make a great speech. The question is, what is the response? What is the resonance? How well it resonates? And how well it hits on most Americans who are struggling around the coronavirus, who are struggling to get some type of health care, who are trying to get their kids in school, who are trying to survive. The economy is down. The economy has to be rebuilt. The pandemic has to be put in check. And this whole matter of the resurgence of white supremacy also has to be put in check. So they have a great challenge, but I think they're up to the task. I would say that this is an optimistic day, at least from what we've heard and what we've seen. Now it's a question of what we all can do together. Because to me, when you call for a more perfect union in the United States, that's an inclusive but also a diverse call that all of us are going to have to work on to achieve ultimate fulfillment.
And Dr. Chavis and Denise, speaking of being up to the task, who's more up to the task than Jim Washington down in Atlanta with The Voice? Welcome, Jim Washington.
I'm glad to be here. I'm listening with bated breath. I'm just here listening to you scholars and historians talk about what's going on today. I'm just happy to be here. It's that kind of day.
Thank you, Jim. Welcome, and salute to you and to all the brothers and sisters in Georgia.
I'm taking all credit, Doc.
I understand.
I'm taking all credit now.
While there's a lot of focus on what happened in Washington on January the 6th, what happened in Georgia on January the 5th set the stage. I mean, for Georgia to go blue and send two Democratic senators, Warnock and the Jewish brother, to the Senate. I mean, that's really historic. So I think we have, not only for reasons to hope, but we have to work now. And I understand that President Biden has paperwork on his desk already in the White House. When he gets there, he's going to sign some executive orders today on immigration, on climate, and other matters that give a new direction for our country.
Mm-hmm. Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock,
yes,
you have to be here. You would have had to have been here, should I say, when all of this was going on, to realize the heightened sensitivity to the possibility of what could happen. And it was tremendous. And the thing that I liked about it, and I hope y'all don't mind me talking about this
okay.
Now, and that is because of the nature of the election, Biden and the president calling and all of this kind of stuff, it kind of put the state on notice. And let's not forget, the State House here is still quite red. It is still quite red. However, the issue of what happened to send that to happen the way that it did, the historic scenario, the way you outlined it, Doc, And I know your perspective would probably be significant as we relate in terms of generations, and that is now we're talking Deep South. We're talking about Georgia now. We're talking about Deep South. And Deep South, a black guy and a Jewish guy on the same ticket.
Right.
I mean, this is an amazing thing that you cannot overlook. You know, every now and then you got to stop and pay
We're
attention.
running against two incumbents.
Thank you very much. And so now you have to give credence to the efforts of all of the and there were so many more folks here than just Stacey Abrams, who were I'll call it heaven bent on making this change based on the organizational structure of what was going on the ground. It was a wonderful thing to then have it culminate in what you saw today. Yeah,
from Georgia, Ossoff and Warnock go to D.C., and from Atlanta, Jim Washington, we go to D.C. to Denise Rolock Barnes. Denise, today Ossoff and Warnock are being sworn in as well. Talk about that a little bit from the perspective of the Washington Informer. I know you've done a lot of coverage on that. We know the significance, but what's the angles that the Informer has taken on that particular part of the story?
Well, you know, we work alongside the Atlanta Voice and about 9 other publications where Black-owned newspapers, Nnpa members who wrote a letter to Georgians and anybody that cared about Georgia to make sure that folks supported the election, that they came out to vote, and they let their voices be known. And we don't know how much of a difference that made, but it was a unifying effort among the publishers to support the effort in Georgia. We're going to take a look, Stacy. We got something the other day, because the one thing when Jim talks about the fact that, you know, Georgia may have turned purple, but the state house is still red, so is the Senate. In many ways, if we peel back, you know, the leadership and look at who actually supports those senators, and it's still, you know, as my daddy used to say, predominantly lily white folks up there, you know, and so we want to look at who's behind, who works in these congressional offices, what the opportunities are for people of non-European descent, you know, to work on the Hill and on both the House and the Senate side. And so we'll be taking a look at that. I know Dr. Chavis would be glad to know that just about every congressional member that I met, and I reminded them of what news organization I represent, but also the association that I'm a member of. And I could see a glitter in their eyes. Stacy, what you've done is a tremendous job, and they want us to continue to cover, particularly the Congressional Black Caucus, which has new leadership right now, and what they're doing, because they, you know, we criticize them a lot, but they're working hard, and now they want to work even harder, but they want their constituents to know the kind of work that they've been doing. So it makes us as members of the Black press make sure that we don't lose focus of the important role that our Congress people play. And now we have a senator or two that represent African Americans on the Senate side. So, you know, there's more work for us to do, and that's exciting. I just wanted to add one more thing too. When Dr. Chavis talked about unity, and what I heard in President Biden's speech goes beyond the U.S. borders. And there's a lot of repair that needs to be done in unifying the United States and other nations around the world who have also been ostracized over the last 4 years.
Absolutely. And one consequence for the Washington Informer and one consequence for the residents of Washington, D.C., we now have a better chance to get statehood. You know, if we're ever going to get statehood for Washington, we better get it while the Democrats control the Senate and the House and in the White House. So as the mayor of Washington said just a couple of days ago, when they were, you know, calling for the National Guard to come and help secure the city for the inauguration, she aptly reminded the nation that the residents in Washington, D.C., over 700,000, are still representation without a vote in Congress. And that's not right, taxation without representation. So hopefully, and if we get a statehood for D.C., that's 2 more senators. So there's a lot at stake over the next 4 years that will not only impact the residents of D.C., but for the rest of the nation as we experience what President Biden, I think he's called for unity, but I would think the unity is with certain principles, the principles of equality, the principles of equity, the principles of sharing the wealth and raising the minimum wage and having an expansion of the Affordable Care Act, dealing with a more equitable distribution of the vaccine to stem the death-willing pandemic, coronavirus. So there are a lot of different things. I just think we're in a better position politically. Overwhelmingly, nobody debates now the importance of the black vote. I think not only black people know that the black vote is important, white people know that the black vote is important. Latinos know that the black vote is important. And we have to keep reminding ourselves that our votes are important. That's why the black press today, I believe in 2021, is going to be a vital necessity, not only to keep accountability, but to push forward to make more progress.
We've been bringing you wall-to-wall coverage of the inauguration of Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, and Vice President Kamala Harris. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour, we have Danny Bakewell Sr. from the Los Angeles Sentinel. He'll be joining us, as well as Larry Lee from the Sacramento Observer. Jim, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yes, you did.
Well, we don't want to miss anything you have to say. That's for sure.
No, I am, as you know, I try to come on and I'm not speaking truth to power. I'm speaking truth to you, you know? And the issue is, the reality is we don't have 4 years, we got 2. All right. Cause in 2 years, there's another election. All right. And one of the things I heard Doc say earlier, and that is, I think Joe Biden understands the reality of 2 years because there are elections in 2 years.
Right.
So to say that you have control also says you have the ability to execute against whatever your goals are. So we have 2 years because one Senate race could change this, literally. And what happened in the House of Representatives in terms of Republicans gaining, there's no guarantees here. Politics is very dynamic. Politics are very dynamic, and they really are fluid. And when I say fluid, I mean we have to, it takes us paying attention. One of the things that Denise said that I wanted to bring up, and that is, we haven't changed. Black press has not changed. The fact of the matter that our communities in where we operate made a difference, reminded people who are elected the difference we can make. One of the things that I say is that I heard basketball coaches say that when you change and you want to bring in a new system, you have to have some victories. So there are people who are walking around today who saw what happened today who will never again think the black vote doesn't matter. They can't, because they were part of it, they saw it, etc. The people in South Carolina who gave that state to Biden, you don't have to tell them how important their vote is. You don't have to tell anybody in Georgia, let me be clear on this, that the black vote does not count. You had too many people who were telling them beforehand, and now they got a taste of that victory as a result of the elections, if you will. And what a thing about that. Our scenario right now, ours being the black press, if you will, is that we do due diligence. As a matter of fact, I told this AKA that I live with, who y'all know, who was up in her green and pearls today and all that kind of stuff. The whole dynamic of the process has changed because this is a hopeful day. But I also realized that Joe Biden, who has been trying to do this, and what'd you say, how many years, Denise? 50? He's the right guy at the right time because he knows, one, he can't waste time. He knows, based on the powers of the executive branch now, he knows how to use them. And I believe him when he said everything that, his soul is in this. I believe the man. I believe, I think we can get carried away based on how far the pendulum swung the other way. Obama swung the pendulum one way. Trump did it the other way. Now we're kind of in the middle trying to settle on what it's going to be. And we have the right guy in that position with the right vice president in that position. Because now you have to pay attention, as we all have, to what happens in the political process. I think the pushback of the system against what we saw in the Capitol a few days ago is significant. The pushback is, well, whatever we thought, and I'll give it back to you. One thing I'm glad I do not have to hear again is I don't have to hear anybody white telling me or saying that's not who we are. This is not the America I know. I don't have to hear that anymore, because this is who you've always been. And when I say you, I mean our country. This might not be the America you knew, but it certainly is the America we knew. Now the question is, maybe we can get together and decide out what we're going to be. This is still the great experiment of the human race. We are still an experiment in democracy in this town. And fortunately for us, the one thing about the 80 million versus the 70 million is there's still more of us, men and women of goodwill, than it is of them. That's all I can say.
Stacy, can I just thank Jim and the folks from Georgia. I think it was the state patrol officer, the state police officer who actually signed the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
And that was another high point, I think, Stacy, from today, because folks just thought she was going to get up there and recite it, but in uniform, well-spoken. I guess I shouldn't have said that, but
No, you should.
Well-spoken in sign language. Let's put it that way. Well-spoken
Okay.
in sign. I thought it was just a wonderful representation of the state. And thank you all for, if I can say so, for representing Georgia in that way.
Right.
I
Well,
would
here we have
wonderful.
all the prior presidents of the United States, President Obama, President Bush, and President Clinton now joining President Biden to present a wreath before the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington Cemetery.
I think that, and I give Doc his props, because he's taught me a little bit, because he's lived in places and have done things and has had things done to him that I haven't. And that is the reality of what Denise says. I think that there was a malaise over the country, and there might have been a malaise over us about our power to change things, our power to change our lives. As a matter of fact, I have to give Doc the credit, because I wasn't at the meeting, but Joe Biden came to the black press. Did he not?
Yes. Yes.
He came to the black press at the time that he was losing.
That's right.
He
The day
didn't
before
have
the
any
South
money.
Carolina primary. Right.
All right. All of that. So there is no misunderstanding by him of how he got to be where he is. And I take him as a man of his word that ultimately says, well, if he feels that way, knows that, and every time he goes talk to the vice president, he sees it, it's staring him in the face, then that gives us a reason to believe in who we are, who we have always been, and more importantly, what we can do together.
Right.
Because anytime anybody wants to get a little iffy about this, look at the State House, look at the White House, look at the Senate, and you can't tell me that our vote doesn't make a difference. Because look at the margins.
Exactly.
Look at Biden's margin in Georgia. Even though the two senators won, look at the margins. This to ultimately say we made a difference, and understand this about Georgia. There are people who woke up who never would have thought that they would have lost those two seats, because there are a bunch of Republicans who stayed home, y'all. I mean, Trump did that. Trump and everything that happened had a lot to do with that folk. Now, over the next 2 years, I can't say you're going to have that same sentiment. So now is the time to do what our president is going to do. When he finishes what he's doing, and these are sacred and ceremonial moments, he's about to go to work. Yep. He does not, wait, he's about to go to work. Now, who is he going to work for, and what does that work represent? It lets Congress know there's somebody in the White House that really doesn't need them to deal with executive power. He knows exactly what he's going to do, and he's got a list of it, and he's going to knock it out. Can you imagine what would happen, what will happen? I'm going to speak it into existence when 100 million people are vaccinated over the next 100 days. Come on now. I mean, now you're talking about let's attack that because that's going to deal with the economy. That's going to deal with a whole bunch of other things. So you've got to feel a little bit better. Now, I will say this. I saw Black people cry when Obama won. I mean, just bawl like babies when Obama won. What you think was going on in white households? We saw it at the Capitol. That same dynamic is happening right now. The split, if you will, in the country.
Yes.
The people who, as hopeful as we are, there are people out there right now who just feel in total despair. The thing that we got going for us right now is I do believe we're seeing what sort of normal looks like, what integrity looks like, what honesty looks like. I'm not even talking about ability. I'm just talking about, I think you can trust what this guy says. I think he means what he says. I think his heart is in the right place. The rest is politics. But you're not going to be able to question that about Joe Biden and his lovely vice president.
Yes.
So I'm getting ready to change it just for a minute, but don't y'all can get back. But I'm looking at Michelle Obama and I guess one of the Biden's daughters and thinking to myself, gosh, what did I do with that maxi coat I used to wear when I was at UR?
You know, I said, people like you, Denise, have changed folks like me and every man on this deal. Anybody who's associated with a Black woman looks at this kind of stuff and go, look at what she got on. See, we didn't do that. I ain't looking at Obama's tie. I'm just not.
And there's Denise today. There you go, Jim. There's Denise early today.
There it is. I love it.
But you know, First Lady Biden came out with a beautiful, I mean, just a beautiful, sparkly. I don't know. I have the colors wrong because you said that Kamala had on purple, and from where I was sitting, I couldn't really tell the color. I thought it was blue. But this coat that the First Lady is wearing is just absolutely beautiful. But hey, it looks like the maxi coats are back. So anybody that's watching, I think we can
oh boy.
So one of our viewers is reminding us that keep in mind Donald Trump's election was a reaction.
Yes, it was.
To 8 years of Obama being president and Biden being vice president. It was a reaction. So the question now, what is going to be the reaction of having a Black woman as vice president of the United States, of Biden, in a sense, he's his own president, but he was vice president to Obama for 8 years. So don't think that they don't have a bond. They have a bond.
Oh, absolutely.
The rest of the country, or Jim, you mentioned the divide, and that's real. But I think you notice in Obama's, and when Obama spoke at his inaugural address, and when Biden spoke in his inaugural address today, I noticed that Biden did not even mention Trump's name. In fact, Trump's name wasn't even mentioned in the whole inauguration ceremony. The page has turned, at least at the White House, but it has not turned yet across the country. That's the issue. And certainly in Georgia, there's going to be a reaction, Jim, to the victories that on January the 5th. So I think vigilance is the order of the day. We must be mindful. I don't want us to be too gleeful or too cheery that we lower our guard, because there's a reaction that's coming. We don't know how it's going to manifest, but we have to be prepared. We have to, and I think, I like what you said, Jim, about 2 years. I would say the first 100 days, we better make as much progress as we can, you know, because we cannot tarry, as our grandparents used to tell us. Don't tarry. You know, let's keep moving forward, because you never know. I know just theologically, when God does something great and good, the devil also still gets busy. You know, so we can't let anybody rob us of the blessings of our vote, and that was massive turnout in November. And that's why we have this historic site that we're watching right now. No question about it. The black vote has helped change America. Now, whether it's irreversible change, we have to wait and see. But not wait and see, but participate to make sure that we don't go backwards, but keep it going forward.
And one of the things that's happening now, everybody's state capital was trying to protect itself from possibilities, but they still met here in Georgia. And one of the first things that came up is that the Democratic delegates were pushing the felony charges to allow people to vote. They have a route, if you will, a methodology that if you were a convicted felon, that you could ultimately gain your right to vote back. So that was the legislation that was being talked about, and it is already headline news down here because that represents about 300,000 plus folks who are simply trying to get their vote back. So the one thing I can say, and I do appreciate being here, I cannot claim that I'm from this wonderful state, but I can say that as a result of watching what's going on, what you're talking about, Doc, is very, very real. Stacey Abrams is not going to sleep. The folks who put their organizations together are not missing anything. And I would simply say that, and I know I'm gonna get in trouble with Denise on this one, but you should not, a scorned woman. And I'm saying Stacey Abrams knows, she knew that they had stolen the governorship from her when she ran. And if y'all recall correctly, the whole world was looking at Georgia then.
That's right.
And okay, well, because of what she did, how can we help you? What can we do? What job do you want? And I believe what she said is just help my organization. So for 2 years, she put together an organization, mostly here, but in other places, of dealing with voter suppression, getting folks registered, having this machine in place. Now, there's one thing I do know. You heard it from here first. Y'all always want to know, what does Stacey want? I think she wants the governorship back between you and me. She has the machinery in place. She already has the taste of victory that we have. And she has the entire country to say they owe her. So I'm looking for good times in this state.
That's great.
Well,
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that I don't know about if it fits in the woman scorn category or what.
Sorry, I didn't mean that.
That's all right. But as I watched this ceremony and watched the former presidents and first lady standing there, my heart feels some kind of way for Hillary Clinton. It looks like, as she looks at Kamala Harris, I'm just wondering what she's thinking and feeling. And what, as you said, James, that conversation is like at home. And if she feels as though, if she coulda, woulda, shoulda, that she would have been, that person, that president, that she wanted to be. I don't know if there are any thoughts about that, but I feel a certain kind of way watching her.
Well, you spoke of Jim, Stacey Abrams knowing that election was stolen from her. In Hillary Clinton's case, she knows that a foreign entity actually stole an election from her. So that there's some emotions there. Now, we do know what she has said, and she's been very public in her admiration for Kamala Harris and what she's been able to accomplish. And so we know that she's been saying all the right things. But you're right, Denise. One must wonder, even today, as she stands there, what's really going through Hillary Clinton's mind? Not that we're alleging anything nefarious, that she's thinking bad thoughts, but you have to wonder what's on her mind. I know she certainly is thrilled that Donald Trump is out of office. That's for sure.
One thing I do know, and that is, if you take the right attitude towards politics, and I'm defining right by my definition, and that is, politics really doesn't have a lot to do with the best candidate, the most qualified candidate, if you will. It has to do with strategy. It has to do with a whole lot of things. I also know that in the world of sports, you have a lot of people who recognize the wins and they rejoice in the wins, but they do have a loss, and that loss haunts them. So I'm sure Denise is right in the sense that that loss, that possibility that got away from her, haunts her to the point that she can write books about it, she can analyze it to death, etc. But I do believe that things happen when they're supposed to and how they're supposed to. And what we're looking at actually reflects that. Joe Biden was losing. People had counted him out going into South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, Doc.
Right.
He got revived. He
That's
got
correct.
energized. People got behind him. And his strategy, his political strategy, was impeccable. The same is true of Kamala. Excuse me, she was up for a minute, and then next thing you know, she was an afterthought after South Carolina. And then all of a sudden, somebody looked at the pieces and looked at the tea leaves, if you will, and began to iron out a strategy. I'm going back to something Doc said earlier. Now's not the time to take a deep breath. Now is the time to organize, strategize, mobilize, execute, repeat. And we have to do it over the next 2 years. But I like the idea of taking stock in what happens over the next 100 days, because there's another side to this. Just because it's 50-50 in the Senate means that basically all senators are what? Are all powerful, because now it's one senator who's a Democrat. I got a whole lot of power I may not have had before. All right. I got a whole lot of power, and the same is true on the other side. So now the middle is where this is going to happen. You have to have some, because to say you got 50 Democrats and all 50 going to vote the same way each and every time, I don't believe so.
Well,
same is true of Republicans.
Earlier this morning, we had the pleasure of having our chair, Karen Carter Richards, on. Denise is a former chair of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. And right now, we'd like to bring on a very special guest, another former chair of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Danny Bakewell, Sr. of the Los Angeles Sentinel. It is a privilege to have you, Mr. Bakewell.
Hey, brothers and sisters, how y'all doing today? It's a great day in the neighborhood.
Great, Danny. I want to thank you. I was telling Stacy earlier, if it hadn't been for the Los Angeles Sentinel and LA Watch Time and you, Danny, you helped Kamala Harris immeasurably to become the first African-American Attorney General of California, and then the first Black United States Senator from California. I heard her say, and I'm not going to embarrass you, Danny, but I don't know of one person that the Vice President Harris calls to wish them happy birthday, sing to them on the phone, other than Danny Bakewell.
Wow.
So Danny Bakewell has a special relationship with our new Vice President, and we just want to thank you for your leadership at the Los Angeles Sentinel, representing the best of the Black press of America.
Thank you, Danny.
And before Mr. Bakewell, before you extend your greetings, let us say thank you to Denise for joining us. We know she has to run. Denise, thanks so much, and great work today at the Capitol, of course.
Thank you so much, Stacy, and thank you, brothers of the Black press.
Yes, thank
And
you.
Denise, you have been amazing in terms of your leadership. So we have, and Denise, it goes without saying, or we should say it, Denise is the second generation publisher.
That's correct.
Her father was a legend in his own mind and in his own time.
Yes.
Carlton was a hell of a brother. We were really
for the third. So I'm
third. There you go. Third. All right.
Thank you so much. And
Take care, Denise.
best is yet to come, as they say.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, Mr. Bakewell, good to see you. Welcome.
I'm happy to be here. Look, got Brother Jim Washington, Brother Ben and yourself. I mean, look, this is a great time. As I say, great day in the neighborhood, and to be with good colleagues like you guys, I'm very appreciative and humbled to be able to just have a good conversation on this wonderful day.
Well, what's the pulse in Los Angeles as we witness history today with the inauguration of Vice President Kamala Harris along with President Joe Biden?
Well, everybody is excited. I mean, I think it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time in Los Angeles because she is one of our own. But it's also just an exciting time because you could tell by all the speeches this morning that, you know, there's a different mood in the country. We just have to make sure that that mood translates into the day-to-day activity of Black folk. And there's some very concrete things that need to be done and can be done. And one of them is dealing with the Black press. A lot of money floating around Washington. And without just making this a business meeting, we need to make sure, and I'm sure they're able rather, we just got to make sure that they're willing to help the Black press access much of that money that's in the federal government for many of the things that we can bring the people to bear and bring the resources to make sure that everybody's aware of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You can turn it into a business meeting anytime you want to, Dan.
Yeah, we have him on tape, and one of the good things about video, we not only get a chance to capture police brutality on our people, but we had a sit down with President Biden.
Yes, we
He
did.
made certain commitments, and we're going to run the tape, Dan, to make sure that those commitments, specifically to the Black press, are kept.
Yeah.
And we had a tremendous salute to the Black press that Senator Harris, now Vice President Harris, made to us. I don't know if we have that clips, Stacy.
Yes, we do.
At some point before we end, we should replay that clip. And we also are going to make known the commitments that Biden has made thus far. And then Cedric Richmond, Dan, your homeboy, is the senior advisor to the president in the White House. So we got to call on those brothers and sisters.
As I said, they're all committed to the purpose and understand how important the Black press is. We just have to do our work and make sure that we get the access.
Absolutely.
Everybody's willing, but when it gets time to be able, sometimes other things get in the way.
Exactly.
Well, one of the things I think, Danny, and you're right, of course, is that I don't know if you have a willingness on the part of those who have a clearer understanding of the power of the Black press and the Black vote, who would knowingly and deliberately take it for granted. I don't think we will take, I know you wouldn't, I won't. Black press is not going to take for granted what we have demonstrated to this country and the world. And I believe that one of the things we do know, and that is money follows power. And now the power that you see in front of you was standing at the inauguration today. So that's something we can't afford to take a step back on.
And I think we have to show them, we have to put in front of them what they are, as you said, Jim, what they already know. And that is there's no Black elected official that has reached their station in life without coming through the Black press. I mean, before people know them on a national scale, they have to reckon with making sure that the local community knows them. And the way that they do that is through the Black press. But not only, elected officials, no Black businessman, no Black preacher, none of them reach their heights of where they are in the community and in the nation without collaborating with the Black press. And that's powerful. And they recognize the power and they embrace the power. Now we just have to translate the power into an economic benefit that is beneficial for us. The more we grow, the more we have the capacity to outreach, the more we can do for them and we can do for the overall community. So that's really our mission. I mean, it's nothing new, but we've just got to be consistent in, raising the mantle to make sure that it gets done.
Well, Danny Bakewell, Sr. and Jim Washington, let's hear from words of Kamala Harris, what she had to say to the Black press. Let's go ahead and play that.
It's Kamala Harris, and I am so happy to celebrate with all of the leaders the 193rd anniversary of the Black Press of America and the 80th anniversary of NNPA. I want to thank NNPA's president and CEO, Dr. Benjamin Chavis, and the national chair, Karen Carter Richards, for your longstanding leadership and for being a voice for and of our community. For 193 years, our country's Black publications have reported on politics, entertainment, and social issues from the perspective of Black Americans. You have been here throughout the defining moments of our history, from Jim Crow to the Civil Rights Movement to the movement that we are currently a part of and witnessing. You have been here and have featured the bylines of Richard Wright, Zora Neale Hurston, and W.E.B. Du Bois in times when mainstream outlets would not. Black publications continue to play an important and a critical role in speaking truth and telling the stories in a way that not only keep us informed, but make sure that everyone understands the perspective, the experience, and the history and the present of our country. So Black publications continue to play an important and critical role in telling stories, reminding people of the past, and also letting them see what can be unburdened by what has been. I want to thank you all, everyone, for your leadership, for your voice, and all that you do. Thank you.
Gentlemen, your reaction.
Well, I want to first salute you,
Right.
Stacy, and Ben, because to have that kind of archive that's readily accessible when we're doing shows like this and others,
Yes.
is powerful. It really is. So great, accolades to both of you for making sure that we're constantly evolving. I mean, that shows we're not just obviously the written word, but we are now the spoken word. And
Yes.
and in this time of digital communication and social media, we've got to be there. And it shows that we've not got to be there. We are there.
Right.
So my hat's off to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, we got more coming. We also have Biden talking about how important the Black man. That's when he made the specific indication that if it hadn't been for the Black vote, he would never have a chance to be sworn in today as the president of the United States.
Well, let's, Dr. Chavis, let's let them hear that. Let's let them see that.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. We're live from Charleston, South Carolina, with Vice President Joe Biden. Welcome to the Black Press of America.
Delight to be with you.
I'm going to just briefly introduce everybody in the
Okay.
order that they're seated. Fran Farrar, who is the publisher in Charlotte, North Carolina, of the County News. Brenda Andrews, the publisher of the New Journal and Guide in Norfolk, Virginia. She's also our national treasurer. And Fran is our second vice chair. Karen Carter Richards, she's the chair. You know, we got a lot of women in charge.
That's why it's working.
Absolutely. Karen Carter Richards is the publisher of the Houston Forward Times and chair of the
newspaper
NNPA.
too.
Next is Bobby Henry, representing the state of Florida. He's from Fort Lauderdale, the distinguished publisher of the West Side Gazette. Janice Ware is from Atlanta, the publisher of the Atlanta Voice, and also our first vice chair. Jackie from Jackson, Mississippi, the publisher of the Mississippi Link, and she's our national secretary. Calvin Anderson, we have 5 regions. He's the regional president of Region 2. We're in Region 2. He's from Memphis, Tennessee, the publisher of the New Tri-State Defender. Here in South Carolina, Larry Smith, the publisher of the Community Times in Florence, South Carolina, and Brother Talbot Smalls, representing the Charleston Chronicle. And this is Stacy Brown, our award-winning reporter, who's recording what you're going to say to us. So listen, I'm going to get right to it because I know you're on a tight time schedule. But
No, I have time for you.
the first question is, not a hard question, but I want to hear from you. And I notice in the debate sometimes you don't get a chance to give full answers to the questions. You're going to have a chance here. No time.
Debates are about 60-second assertions.
But this is the Black Press,
Yeah.
representing the voice of Black America. Tell us how important the Black vote is in 2020.
It's going to determine who the next president is. It's not hyperbole. It really is. I come from a background where the black community, most of you don't know much about my state, I don't think. We have the 8th largest black population in America, 19.8% of our state. We have a lot in common, unfortunately, with South Carolina in the sense that we were part of Brown versus Board of Education. It was the Delaware case that came up. I got started in the African American community. I never thought I was going to run for public office. I got involved in the civil rights movement as a kid, desegregating movie theaters, that kind of thing. No great shakes. I'm not making myself out to be some big deal. And then I was the only guy who worked in the projects in the East Side who was white. They hired mostly athletes at the time. Believe it or not, I used to be a pretty good athlete. So that's how I got started. And the black community is the community that had, as they say in parts of my state, that brung me to the dance. That's how I got elected. And even in the off years, when we'd run I'd get the same percentage in the off years, not a non-presidential year. The black community come out in the same percentage it did in the presidential year. So it's been the heart and soul of why I got involved to begin with. And now it's going to be the determining factor, I think, in who the Democratic nominee is going to be. And I hope that means who the next president is going to be. And so I just, and the black press, look, the way I was raised, and not raised, the way I did my politics was you go where people are. You go where they listen. You walk into a black barbershop, beauty salon, your newspapers are there. You walk in and you listen to the radio and you listen to gospel radio where I come from. I mean, for real. This is not, it's who we are, the neighborhoods you come from. And so I think it's incredibly important. I think you all are incredibly important. I just wish I had $62 billion to be able to invest more in, in black newspapers. But, it's the only, I've never invested in, I've never had the money, but any ads I've ever purchased, they've only been in black newspapers because it's the single best way for me to get access to people knowing what I really mean, what I really say, and making myself available whenever to the black press.
All right, well, thank you. Well, we're going to.
Powerful one more time.
Well, he certainly, and Danny and Jim, he certainly now has control over $62 billion, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
More than that.
We definitely got him on record. That's for damn sure.
And one of the things I believe, and that is you have to have some faith in who's speaking. It's sort of like, and I think, and Danny, I don't mind saying this. I thought Danny was one of the best chairmen of Nnpa we ever had. And I went up to him and told him after he left that I cornered him and said, I didn't know who he was in terms of what he could do. And I didn't vote for him. But I have since told him, based on what he stood for, how he did what he did, he left our organization better off than I had ever seen it. So I'm just transferring that integrity to Joe Biden. I believe what I hear. I have no reason not to. So I'm not going at him with a sense of what I would say to others, which is, one, I don't believe you, so that's going to change my tactic. But Doc, you sitting there, we got him on tape. So I as I told my lovely missus this morning, you were there then, and I guarantee you'll have audience again. I know about the pandemic and I know about that stuff, but he would never not invite the black press to the White House to have a different kind of discussion. That's just what I believe.
It's the economic discussion. I think that, goodwill has to translate into good deeds.
That's what Danny just said. I agree.
I'm just going to be very honest. I think we're going to get more out of the Biden-Harris administration than we got out of the Obama administration. It's not trying to put Obama down, but I'm just saying the reality of the times that we live in. There is, without question, the strategic advantage that the black vote, the black press, the black church has delivered to this president, and he knows it. And we're not going to have to be trying to chase him down and twist arms.
Right.
It's a matter of being consistent. I think Dana's point. This is not about a one-time crumb off a table. This is about a consistent, renewable. Talking about renewable energy, we need renewable generation of revenue. Equip our papers, our infrastructure, the way all these federal agencies spend those billions of dollars in advertising dollars. And we have to have these discussions way up front, in the first days of the 100 days, not wait till after 100 days. We have to be up front with making sure that our issues are addressed. And that's kind of the posture that we're in. And certainly we're going to replay that tape.
Yeah, and one of the things that, Danny, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say, all of this has to be couched into a grand strategy. And one of the strategic points that we have to make is that no more calling of Black folk to the White House without the Black press being in that lineup.
That's right.
It's nice to have the Urban League, nice to have the NAACP,
Right.
Nice to have all Sharpton, all of those are Push. All of those are our brothers, and we work closely with them. But they too rely on us to get their message out. And they relied on us to get their message out long before white folk were embracing our messages or their messages, no matter what. So we have to be strategic. Yes, we've got them on tape, and we've got to make sure that they recognize us and give us an invitation to the party.
And one of those, and I think that the return on that invitation could be the success of getting our people vaccines. There are all kind of issues out there about our reluctance to do so, and they earn that right. Our reluctance is earned, if you will.
Yes.
But a strategy of utilizing our newspapers to get that word out, to get 100 million folk vaccinated over the next 100 days.
Right.
That's the kind of thing, Doc, that I think it's not ammunition. I'm not trying to coerce anybody.
No,
it's a recipe. It's a recipe for success.
Yes.
And if you want to know whether or not we can be successful, look who's in the White House. Look what happened in the Senate. I'm talking about here in Georgia. That's what I'm saying, is that you cannot overlook that element of success. We can't afford to allow that to happen, because that to me is grounds for righteous indignation. That's just me right now. I'm just saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so as we talked earlier with our chair, Karen Carter Richards, and Dr. Chavis has expressed this too, that in the dealings that we've had, the dealings that Dr. Chavis has had with President Biden lends to the argument that he is sincere and that he's going to follow through. You look at what he's done so far. He talked about during the campaign having the most diverse cabinet and the most diverse White House you've ever seen. Well, he's already accomplished that. Some still are complaining a little bit about it should be this person there or that person there. But the fact is he is fulfilling his mandate to the best of his ability. And we know, too, that the Senate will have something to say about his appointments. And today there are some hearings going on, confirmation hearings, that is. So, it's a thing that we are seeing that the president is carrying out, or at least attempting to carry out, his mandate.
Well, it's a consistent engagement. I think we have a hell of an opportunity, and we would be derelict in our responsibility if we miss these opportunities. So,
and he would be remiss if he missed this opportunity.
Exactly.
We are the keys to him achieving many of the things that he wants to achieve.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things that Black folk do, and one of them is they read Black newspapers. And it's a very simple reason. They read Black newspapers because we can see ourselves in Black newspapers. We can see Auntie May, and we can see when we're born, and we can see when we die. We can see when we're in trouble. We can see who we marry. We can see all the successes that we have, as well as all of the failures. So we're constantly in touch with each other through that medium, and they need to reach out for Black radio as well.
I agree.
So, this is not something where we want to hoard it. We want to expand the capacity of the Black press, Black media, to be able to deliver the message. The more people we deliver the message to, the more powerful we become and the more powerful they become. So let's just do what's right.
Exactly.
I think doing business, and we're not asking for a handout. We're not asking for a favor. We're asking for respect and reciprocity. We deliver for you. Now we're asking you to deliver for us.
Yeah, and speaking of delivering, just a short segue, Danny Bakewell Sr., you do it every year with the festival out in Los Angeles, Taste of Soul. I know it had to be virtual this past year, but again, speaking of bringing folks out, that's the biggest street festival in the nation, if not the globe now.
It is, and we're very proud of it. And it's the kind of thing, again, that makes the point. When the Black press is involved, Black people come out. We say these neighborhoods, this is our neighborhoods where everybody's welcome, as long as they come peacefully, as long as they come to do business with us in our community. We raise up the best that our community has, and we show our wares, and we trade with each other. And the more we do it, the more people come. 350,000 people each and every year at that engagement. So, and it's a wonderful thing. Never had an incident. It's also interesting that the white press, the written press, the LA Times, has never featured the Taste of Soul, but we feature ourselves. So we're not sitting around remiss, waiting for somebody else to do for us what we know we can do for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Jim. I know you wanted to jump in there.
Oh no, it's been a minute since I have been able to be a part of such a panel as this. So I'm listening as much as I'm talking, and the terms of this reminds me, Doc, of the kinds of meetings we used to have, and we're
Yes.
getting back to it.
Yes.
When there's a target and what have you. So when Danny's talking, I'm thinking about, you know what? I don't know if we have to wait for the invitation to be a part of the process. And the process now is the political process. You cannot overlook what we did in the political process this time. What could happen if you invite us to the process of economic empowerment for our communities? What would happen if you look at trying to deal with health disparities in our communities? All you have to do is invite us to the party. We all have something to say. Like Danny just said, he doesn't have to wait for the LA Times to bless his event.
Exactly.
We don't, and now the recognition is, if you really want something to happen for the betterment of the African American community, I'm your advocate. We're your advocates. There's nothing wrong with that in the role of the press, if you will. But to divide the press into Black, minority, and general market white is ridiculous these days. We've been the majority press for our newspaper since we started. That has not changed.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Chavis, I know that you talk a lot about what Jim just said. We have been the voice. Earlier today, you were talking about our founders at Freedom's Journal. You want to go ahead and expand on that a little bit?
No, I just think that this year, 2021, marks the 194th year of the Black press since March of 1827. And if you go back and look at the front page of Freedom's Journal with Roswell and Cornish, for 193 years, they were dealing with white supremacy back then. They were dealing with exclusion back then. They were dealing with the lack of economic parity, the lack of economic equity back then. So have we made progress in 194 years? Yes, but we're still not where we should be. And I think in light of just what happened, what we witnessed today, the swearing in ceremonies, the inauguration, that's a signal that we need to be even more engaged, not less engaged. And I don't want us to raise the victory flag too soon.
Right.
Well, we are celebrating, but I don't want us to be too intoxicated with the celebration. I want us to be vigilant, observant, and pushing the envelope. And I think Danny is right. We're not asking for charity. This is a business relation. This is engagement. You know, we fulfill our mission every day, and in print, in digital, in social media, and multimedia. And the black press is vital, I think, to the future of America, because when you hear the new president of the United States call for unity, you're not going to get unity with all the ignorance. White supremacy is a manifestation of ignorance. It's a manifestation of less than truthful education and facts. And I think when people stormed the Capitol on January the 6th, they were led by a lot of falsehoods, a lot of untruths, a lot of hatred that was fed for 4 years. So while it was shocking to some, it wasn't shocking to me. I knew that was going to happen sooner or later. And unfortunately, while the National Guard and a lot of the troopers that were there today suppressed it for a moment, it's still there. So to me, we can't waste time. I think to build our communities, build stronger businesses, have more revenue flowing in our community, where we generate the revenue for ourselves rather than wait for the benevolence of somebody else who really may care about us, but don't care about to the point that we can get ourselves out of poverty. We can get ourselves out of neighborhoods where the quality of life is lower than what it should be. So I'm optimistic, but my optimism stems from our ability now and our opportunity to engage the federal government, and to also, we shouldn't take our eyes off these state governments. We still got to put pressure on these state legislatures also that are allocating and spending resources, as well as the federal government. So it's like all hands on deck. I think we got to raise up a new generation of freedom fighters, freedom fighting journalists, as well as freedom fighting members of Congress. And I see that on the horizon coming. I think there was a lot of goodwill today, but now we got to translate that, as I said before, into good deeds.
I think we've got to continue to tell the story that nobody can tell our story better than us.
That's correct.
You know, we can tell our story, and this is our time. And this is the time to have a relationship, a partnership with the black press.
Yes.
The black media, because we're more than just newspapers now. We have the capacity, as you've shown in some of your clips. We're communicating with folk at the levels that they want to be communicated. Young people dial into, you know, the Sentinel, dial into, and I'm sure many of the other papers, I'm sure in Atlanta, etc. We know how to tell our story. We know how to communicate. And anybody who talks to us about wanting to have their story told, we show them how they can do that. And they all come back and say, I'm amazed at the kind of response we've gotten from advertising in the Sentinel and the LA Watchtower. Guys, I'm gonna have to run because I've got Zoom is all over the place these days. It's zooming me in and zooming me out. But
well, thank you for taking this time with us, man.
Jim, it was great to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Best to your wife. Brother Stacy, stay on the case. And Ben, you're a true leader, brother. Keep us moving.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Peace. I gotta go.
All right.
Bakewell Sr., Bakewell Media, and the Los Angeles Sentinel. We appreciate him dropping in. Just to go along with that last thought there, one of our viewers, Jim and Dr. Chavis, Rich Davis, says, we hold the keys to this country. It's been on our backs, blood, sweat, and tears that the American economy was built. So it is time to take our seat at the table. We can reach the highest pinnacles of government, but not in the boardrooms. The people are there, and now it's time for us to take our seat at the tables. We've earned our place there many times over. Now it's time to stake our claim.
That's true.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the story. And the piece is, like Danny said, like Doc has been saying, like you have been putting together these varying points of view about a lot of subjects in this capacity building scenario for the black press. And that is, I don't think you can listen to any of us on any of the subjects that you've covered, Stacy, and not come away with an understanding of the caliber, a player, the depth of the thought process, as well as the expanded nature of finding solutions to everything. So when I say invite us to the when he says invite us to the table, and we talk about being a part of the process, it will come. The next challenge for us is to fight something that is out there, and that is, you know what, black people are only Democrats, if you will. And the truth of the matter is, well, Republicans really haven't given us a whole bunch to deal with. So there's opportunity there too. All right. Because they too, if there's anybody who understands the significance of our vote right now, it's the Republican Party. Now, you can either, benefit from that, or it can be a detriment to the party's future. All right. I mean, and those are the kind of things that I meant earlier when I said, if you're astute about politics, then there are no permanent friends and there are no permanent enemies. All right. The only permanent friends we got is each other. All right. And we know that behind closed doors, we don't all agree on everything, but you cannot disagree with the facts of today and recent months and the elections that said we are of one goal, and that is fighting voter suppression, increasing voter turnout, and making sure that we have access. And that's one of the things that I think intelligence now tells us. We kind of know how y'all don't want us to vote. We got to know what you're doing to stop us. But now that we focused on that, you can't stop us. Whatever you're putting in there, right, you can't stop us right now. So you better deal with that.
Well, and we saw too that the former president's goal not only was to suppress the vote first and change the vote afterwards, but where did he center that attack on? Atlanta, Fulton County, predominantly black, right? When it came to Georgia. So your point obviously is well taken.
Well, all of the swing states, all of the swing states were, we got to take care of black folks because their votes shouldn't count. All right, as long as we don't let them vote. Now that's go back how many years, Doc? Did you say 193, 194?
Yes.
All right. This is not new to us. The reality of time and erosion says, I believe a lot of us started to believe it doesn't make a difference. It just doesn't make a difference. You cannot look at today, which is the hope, the optimism, and everything else. You can't say it make a difference. My mother-in-law is 90 years old. She has seen a black president, and she has seen her soror from a historically black college be vice president. So let's not talk about what's possible, because we did that. What you said earlier about Obama is Obama wasn't looked upon as the difference, meaning we made the difference in his election. I think it was kind of understood, well, black folks going to vote for him and so on and so on.
Exactly.
No, we made a difference in this election. It was a conscious difference. It was on the news every day.
That's right.
I mean, so you can, you know what? I mean, there are folks right now in their homes going, how did they do that? What happened? And the issue is, as long as we don't forget it, and we can use our pages to continue to talk about it, report about it, look at the solution, because regardless of what we believe, we are advocates. You can say whatever you want to about what I do every day, but I am an advocate for the betterment of my community. May not always agree with everybody, but I'm an advocate. And right now, like Doc said, hey, election's over. Now let's talk about what deeds you're going to do. Let's talk about how we impact that. And I think it's an easy thing to look at. Do you want to make an impact on this virus? Then we are all standing ready to serve.
That's right. And can make the critical difference. Because
there you go.
If we're going to turn this vaccination thing around, you can't think about turning it around without the black press.
That's correct. That's correct.
And again, you talk about the virus, you talk about healthcare. Well, let's look at what Joe Biden, then candidate Joe Biden, said to Dr. Chavis about healthcare in the black community.
Mr. Vice President, there's some quality of life issues that affect black America disproportionately.
Bingo.
First one is healthcare.
Yep.
Everybody was hopeful when Obamacare was passed, when the Affordable Care Act was passed. Now, a couple of years later, people feel like their health care access is in jeopardy. If you're elected President of the United States, what can you say to Black America about what your administration would do to ensure that every family, every child, everyone in our community has access to quality health care?
Well, look,
affordable, and to be able to pay for it.
affordable and quality, and that works two ways. It's not. I'll go into the quality in a minute. Well, you tell me what you want me to go into. But here's the deal: when we passed the Affordable Care Act, the so-called Obamacare, we had an awful lot of opposition. We weren't able to get a single Republican vote. I was dispatched to the floor to make sure we got all the votes we needed, the floor meaning the House and the Senate, to get all the Democratic votes we needed. And that was a stretch. We just got it done. And because, look, every community is put in jeopardy. I mean, one of the things, particularly the African American community, I mean, all the way from when my wife started the breast health initiative, was, mobile vans would go around the city but didn't go into black communities. So it wasn't just the idea of being available, it's just how people were viewed as having access. But when we passed the Affordable Care Act, what we wanted to do initially, but we barely could get, we got done what 5 Democratic presidents had tried to do before and couldn't get done, guaranteeing that everybody with a pre-existing condition would be able to be covered, over 100 million people. You have a child with asthma to Down syndrome or anything in between, they were able to get covered without having to pay more for their coverage. We made sure that we had 20 million people covered who never were covered before, and that it really impacted on the African American community. Here in South Carolina, we're in a situation where you had a governor pass a law that did not take advantage of what we provided in Obamacare, that there be Medicaid available for anyone who, in fact, did not have the money to be covered by buying into a policy. Well, they cut that here. They did not allow that to happen in other states. So you got 200,000 folks or more that don't have access to insurance. So what we did was I came along and, working with the team, made sure that we in a situation where we added what we call a public option. And the public option was Medicare if you want it. Medicare if you want it. And if you qualify for Medicaid, you're automatically enrolled in what will become the Biden plan, which is an add-on to the, I'm going to take every cut that this president has made on Obamacare, including getting us out of court, challenging the constitutionality of Obamacare, and add a public option. Plus, in addition to that, we're going to make sure that we make it more susceptible, more available to people to get the so-called gold plan by further subsidizing the whole project. It costs a lot of money. It costs $740 billion over 10 years. But I can pay for that, and I'll get it done by one thing, just making sure people pay their capital gains at their tax rate. Well, not at 20%, but their tax rate. If they're at a 35% tax rate, a 33% tax rate, you pay it whatever that rate is. That raises $800 billion over the same period of time. And so I can get this done quickly. We can cover everybody. We reduce drug prices. We reduce access to the waiting times, et cetera. I don't know how much time you have on this, but okay. But the bottom line is this. I've been a significant consumer of health care. My family. When my wife and daughter were killed, my 2 sons were really badly injured in that car accident, and I know what it's like to have the peace of mind to know at least you have coverage, you have hope. When my son was dying for 15 months and stage 4 glioblastoma, it was an ugly. Anyway, and. But the point I'm making is that no insurance company could come along and say after 10 months, well, suffer in peace, you've run out of your coverage. So we've changed it. I promise you, I guarantee everyone that I'm going to treat your health care, whether it's the black community or any other community, as if it were my own family, because I know what it's like. Mm-hmm. And I had enormous help in dealing with the problems I had. Think of all the people.
Well, there it is again. Joe Biden's own words, Jim, healthcare is a huge issue, especially in our community.
And that's why, and because before I have to go, that's why I say, in terms of the discussion, etc., where do you put, at some point in time, you put your faith and you also put your energy behind something. So as Doc is saying, and I believe him, of course, Well, I'm not going to let him take us for granted. As a matter of fact, I have reasonable expectation to think and believe that he being the president, is going to follow up with those things that become opportunities for us. And part of it is 50 years in politics, but he doesn't have 50 years of having a silver spoon in his mouth.
That's right.
His experience in terms of what's going on with this country and what's the political nature of this country, and the ability of this country, the power, if you will. My belief right now is I thoroughly expect and want to get back to what I would call the great debate between one side of the House or the Senate and the other side of the House or the Senate, which says there's an honest debate about healthcare. In our previous administration, there wasn't a debate about healthcare because there was never anything brought to the solution other than kill it. The great debate about economic empowerment, inner city development, job creation, these are the kind of things that Obama was trying to do. They just got put on hold for 4 years. Now, all of a sudden, those discussions are the things that will bring the country back. Healthcare, economic empowerment, dealing with economic, the disparity there, and the disparity of healthcare. One of the things that will happen and should happen, and that is if our communities, parts of our community, begin to thrive and participate in this system, this capitalist system, the country will be better off. Period. Now that's the thing that gets me in terms of what are you arguing about? What does a thriving black business community do to threaten you? I'm talking about some of those who are on the other side and are not necessarily. I don't want to say that, so let me just say that's it. I won't say anything else. I know. I just don't want to know. I'm going, but Doc, I'm gonna give you the last word before I go because I want to hear it.
Thank you. First of all, I think that your perspectives are right on point. And one of the things that we can glean from reviewing that videotape with now President Biden, it comes across as being authentic.
Yes.
He's speaking from his soul, his own life experiences. And it's interesting. He said, I guarantee you, I promise to you, I'm going to be after health care for your family like it was my family. I haven't heard a president of the United States say that before. Ever.
Mm.
So he has more than empathy. I think he has a concern that's born out of his own life experience. So I think that we have to build on what is already there. I think that there's going to be a lot of pressures. He's going to be in a pressure cooker situation because everybody's going to be pulling at him, coming from here and there. But I do think that Vice President Harris, together with President Biden, will discern their priority list and timing. Certainly, we got to get a control of the vaccinations. And your point earlier, we can be very helpful to the federal government to get the word out to the community. Black people right now are dying, Jim, 3 times what whites are dying from COVID-19. So, and they're expecting another 100,000 to die before Valentine's Day. That's how serious this epidemic is. It's a crisis. And I think that there's a sense of urgency that we're prepared to help the CDC, the NIH, and all of the people that are going to be tasked. He's got a special coronavirus task force. We have a coronavirus task force. And I think there's a meeting of both of our task force on this coming Monday to talk about this issue. So, because it is urgent. And we're going to discuss this also at the Midwinter Conference. What is our posture given the new administration? And we'll have more details by then. But I want to thank you, Jim, not only for what you're doing in Atlanta, but also I see that the Dallas Weekly continues to win awards, making an impact. And
that's boy child. You know what? I got up out of there. I'm living in Dallas now. Living in Atlanta now. My son has taken over the operation, and I'm pretty proud papa right now, Jack.
Well, he's doing good. He's doing great. He's doing good. And please give my best, our best wishes to your better half. She's our distinguished first Vice President, Janice Ware.
I work for her.
I understand. I understand. I overstand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to thank y'all for having me.
Thank you for joining in with us on this
All right.
historic.
I appreciate it. I have it, and I'm leaving the whole day as optimistic as when I started. I just have nope, I'm gonna leave that. Y'all alone. I appreciate it. Take care, fellas. Stacy, thank you. Anytime, call me.
You got it. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Jim Washington of the Atlanta Voice. Dr. Chavis, great guest today. We still have one more to go at the top of the hour. Larry Lee of the Sacramento Observer. But you were able to put together a really strong lineup from our publishers. Obviously, not all could participate, but those who did, who could, wow. Danny Bakewell Sr., Jim Washington, Al McFarland, Jackie Hampton, and of course, Denise Rolock Barnes and Karen Carter Richards. What a day, Dr. Chavis.
It's been a great day. It's been a historic day. And it's still going on. The day is not over with yet. The virtual inaugural parade is going on now. President Biden is at the White House, and Vice President Harris is at her station. And we look forward to great things. I think this is a celebrative day for all of America, but particularly for Black Americans.
Yeah, one of our viewers, Rich Davis, says VP Harris is the guide through a lot of the issues we are facing as a nation. President Biden is going to lean on her probably more than any president has leaned on a VP since Ronald Reagan. She's the future of this nation. I don't think a lot of people would argue with that. And I wanted to go back to something too. Our executive administrator, Claudette Perry, had noted. She says the stories we've been telling, talking about the Black press, of course, the stories we've been telling have been told by us for decades. The white supremacists have now shown by their actions that our stories are true and not playing the race card, as they like to say. The white nationalists have clearly shown the infiltration of white nationalists that exist and have always existed in the police departments, the military, and other law enforcement since the Civil War and before. And we know that in that insurrection, there were law enforcement involved in that insurrection. There's been arrests made. We had Congressman Al Green from Texas on last week, and he talked about one particular officer from Houston that was involved in the insurrection. So it's a lot to overcome. But again, when we mentioned overcome, we've been overcoming for a long time, Dr. Chavis.
Well, that's why we're in the 1960s, 1950s and the 1960s. The theme song of the Civil Rights Movement was "We Shall Overcome." And we still have to keep singing that song. We have to keep Dr. King's dream alive. And as we witnessed the inauguration today, I kept thinking about what Dr. King would say by seeing the first Black woman to be taking the oath of office to be Vice President of the United States. Another great achievement. And we all should be proud, all should be vigilant, and look for the best. And we should all be looking for ways how each of us can make a contribution to making our nation a better place, our communities, and the uplift of our own families. So I'm optimistic. I think this has been a good day for the Black press, Stacy. We've been on the air since 7 o'clock. I think we got about 45 more minutes to go, or hour and 15 more minutes to go. I'm looking forward to Larry Lee from the Sacramento Observer to join us in a few minutes. But this has been good, and we both. I don't know. I've been sitting in my chair for hours, but it's been good. I'm not complaining because we've had good news to report today. It's one thing to witness history; it's another thing to participate in the history that we are witnessing, and that's what the Black press has been doing all day today. We thank all of our viewers. We still got 1 more hour to go. We're not signing off. We're probably just going to keep rolling on until our next guest comes on. I know, do we still have the live feed from the inaugural committee, Stacy?
Yeah, we do. It's gone dark right now, but as when it comes back up, we will certainly put it on the screen so everyone can see. But we do know that a lot has been going on there. They went to, as we saw earlier, the president and vice president went to Arlington National Cemetery, and there was to be a short walk down Pennsylvania Avenue as well.
Okay, very good, very good. All right, well, listen, what time will Larry Lee be on at 4?
Yeah, we're expecting Larry Lee from the Sacramento Observer at 4 o'clock to give us some more insights, this time from the capital of California. So that should be nice. The parade is going on at the moment, according to Rich Davis. Yeah, we see that. Thanks a lot. And Rich Davis says a change is going to come. He's quoting, of course, Sam Cooke, and I think you did the same thing earlier today, Dr. Davis.
It's a great song that's coming true today in 2021.
Yeah, and
a change is coming. A change has come. You know, we gotta add another verse to Sam Cooke's song. You know, a change has come in America on January the 20th, 2021.
Well, and you know, we've been talking a lot about, especially with our publishers Jim Washington and Danny Bakewell, about Biden and Black America. Well, you know, he laid out a plan for Black America, and that plan has a lot in it, and it includes to advance the economic mobility of African Americans and close the racial wealth and income gaps. He also wants to expand access to high quality education, and he wants to tackle racial inequity in the education system. So that's just a couple of things. He says and here's something, Dr. Chavis, that's near and dear to you. He wants to address environmental justice. Remind our viewers how important that is.
It's very, very important. There's something called the social determinants of health. And one of the social determinants of the health condition outcomes is the environment. We all know what happened in Flint, Michigan, when they discovered that the pipes were all corroded, lead, and a lot of people were poisoned in Flint, Michigan, because of the poor quality of the water running through corroded pipes. And some people have just been charged with that now because people knew this condition, but it allowed the people in Flint, Michigan to continue to drink literally poison out of the public drinking water. But I remember back in 1982 in Warren County, North Carolina. I'm from North Carolina. Warren County is one of the poorest counties in the 100 counties. It's an agricultural county, but it's also a predominant Black county. Good people that live in Warren County. I go to church in Warren County. And so what happened was the state of North Carolina decided to build a landfill outside of Warrenton and dump hundreds of tons of PCB-laden soil, polychlorinated biphenyl soil. PCBs is cancer causing is carcinogenic. You would say, well, why would they want to build a landfill in a predominant Black community, a poor rural agricultural community? And that was because they thought they could take advantage of these people. They could triage their interests. And we were dumped on. And that's when in 1982, I first coined the term environmental racism as a result of that. And now we have a whole, not only national environmental justice movement, but it's become a global movement. So when you hear President Biden and Vice President Harris commit to dealing with environmental justice, that's good news. In Louisiana, between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, there's something called Cancer Alley. Why is it called Cancer Alley? Because the incidence of cancer is the highest in the nation in those counties, in those zip codes between Baton Rouge and Louisiana, predominantly Black again. And so we're disproportionately exposed to environmental hazards all over the United States. In Harlem, you've heard me say this before, Stacy, 60% of all the children in Harlem, Black children, have asthma. They're not born with asthma, but they get asthma because of the poor air quality that they breathe. So we not only need fresh air, fresh water, clean food, good food, but we have to protect ourselves. And that's why environmental justice is so important. When COVID-19 hit, you heard health officials talking about comorbidities or pre-existing health conditions.
Yep.
So where does all this asthma, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, lung disease. Where does all this come from? It comes from our disproportionate exposure to environmental hazards. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about what Biden's plan is for Black America. Well, listen to this, Dr. Chavis. Approximately 4% of small business owners are African American, right? But even though African Americans make up 13% of the population, to build wealth in African American communities, President Biden says we must invest in the success of African American businesses and entrepreneurs. And also he wants to ensure equal access to credit and capital, because African American businesses often lack the capital they need to succeed. And African American businesses are rejected at a rate nearly 20% higher than white-owned firms. Even worse, African American businesses that do get funding receive only 40% of the money requested, as compared to 70% for white businesses. So President Biden has pledged to change that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important. And we're going to be looking at the Department of Commerce. We're going to be looking at the SBA, the Small Business Administration. We're also going to be looking at the new Secretary of the Treasury. It's the whole finance question, investment question, availability of capital to recapitalize our businesses and to rebuild our businesses. We need to engage in wealth building in the African American community. We can get ourselves out of poverty. We don't have to wait for the charity for somebody else, but we have to have the opportunity to generate wealth. And I believe that over the next 2 years, over the next 4 years, we're going to have a great opportunity to do exactly that.
Yeah, and another point of President Biden's plan that specifically targets African Americans, he wants to increase the opportunities that Black-owned businesses to obtain or participate in federal contracts. In the aftermath of the 2008-2009 financial crisis, well over $100 billion of federal prime contracting dollars were awarded to minority-owned small businesses. And between 2013 and 2016, the Obama and Biden administration increased federal prime contract dollars going to small disadvantaged businesses by nearly 30%, from 30.6 billion to 39.1 billion. But that all was reversed under the previous administration.
Right. We have to gain ground from the what was lost during the Trump administration. There was a retreat from sustaining African American businesses. And then on top of that, Stacy, we had the COVID-19. And so there are estimates that from 40 to 60% of all African American businesses, some will not be able to reopen because of the pandemic. So on the one hand, we have a health pandemic. On the other hand, we have a white supremacy pandemic, which both converge on the issue of economic sustainability. But I don't want anybody listening on this day of inauguration to lose hope. I think what we witnessed today, with a new president, a new vice president, a new cabinet, a new worldview, if you will, of America, it's not only the possibilities that we can regain some of what was lost over the last 4 years, but I think we have a pathway forward that all of us can engage. And I want everybody, if your business is in trouble, this new stimulus package that the president has, almost $1 trillion stimulus package, we hope that will get expedited through the new Congress of the United States. And people will not only get their $1,400 checks, but will get other aspects of relief, particularly in the business sector. So I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to gain ground now under the new Biden-Harris administration.
Yeah, and another point too that we should mention as we continue to talk about the inauguration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris is the Harris and Biden plan for African American individuals in the country. He wants to expand African American home ownership and access to affordable, safe housing. The gap between African American and white home ownership is larger today than when the Fair Housing Act was passed 53 years ago. This has contributed to a jaw-dropping racial wealth gap, nearly 1,000% between median white and African American households. So because home ownership is how most families save and build wealth, the disparity in home ownership is a central driver of the racial wealth gap. And we know that to be so, Dr. Chavis.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that we have to really pay attention to is this gap. And that's why I'm excited that President Biden has nominated Congresswoman Marsha Fudge to be Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. And I think that we need to gain ground because we've lost ground on home ownership. We've lost ground on property ownership in the Black community. Now it can be turned around, but we have to have the right government policy, the right public policy. And that's one of the things that the Black press, we're going to be having early meetings with the new Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marsha Fudge, to talk about how to reverse this trend right now with home ownership going down in the Black community. We need it to go up. One of the greatest assets that one could ever have is not only to own property, but to own a home, because it gives you leverageability. You can leverage that as an asset. And the value of that property of a home, if you keep it up, increases over time. It's like an investment, one of the best investments to be a homeowner. So all of our listeners in the community, we're going to be working hard with that particular government agency, Housing and Urban Development, to make sure that we can reverse the trend and see now an increase in home ownership rather than the current 4-year trend over the last 4 years where home ownership in the Black community went significantly down.
Yeah, and you've been watching special coverage of the National Newspaper Publicists Association and the Black Press of America's coverage of the 2021 inauguration of President Joe Biden and also Vice President Kamala Harris. We are so glad that you can join us today. And now we're going to welcome our great publisher from Sacramento, California, Larry Lee from the Sacramento Observer. Larry, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Likewise. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you fine, Larry. You look good. Welcome to our special coverage of the inauguration of President Joe Biden and the inauguration of Vice President Harris, Kamala Harris. We thank you for your leadership, Larry, at the Sacramento Observer. And I knew your father, and I know some of the great work that the Sacramento Observer continues to do now under your leadership. But thank you for being a part of the Nnpa.
Oh, absolutely, Dr. Ben. Thank you for your leadership as the association. You've been a fantastic president and CEO for us. You are a champion of the Black press and a champion for our community. So we're thankful to have you leading us. And Stacy, as always, you're doing a great job. You're keeping us informed and letting the world know about what's going on with the Black press. So excited to be a part of it.
Well, you know what's amazing, Larry? I think the last time we saw you was a few months ago. Maybe even the summertime, but Larry's getting younger, Dr. Chavis. How is that even possible?
All right, okay.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that.
One thing, Larry is in Sacramento is the capital city of California.
Yes, sir.
Major state. And of course, Larry knows Vice President Kamala Harris. From your perspective, you've seen her rise from being a DA in San Francisco to become the state attorney general of California, and then the U.S. Senator from California, and now Vice President of the United States. So share with our viewers, Larry, your perspective from the capital city of California. How do you see this historic day of Kamala Harris being the first Black woman Vice President of the United States?
Well, a couple ways, Dr. Ben. First and foremost, I'm a son of a mother, a husband, and a father of 2 daughters. So seeing a Black woman ascend to that position as a man who loves women and loves to see their voices part of our democracy is just, it was a glorious day, a very eye-watering day, to say the least, to see Kamala Harris come out and be introduced as the president, the vice president of the United States. I'm sorry, a little foreshadowing there. But so that was just a wonderful day, a day I shared with my daughters. today to try and get them to understand the full context of that. It's not something to take lightly. Seeing this happen, I'm fortunate. I got a 16 and a 12-year-old daughter, and they've seen a black man be president of the United States and a black woman be vice president of the United States in their lifetime. That's something that probably you and I never thought that we would see. So I think that in of itself is something extremely magical about this country.
Exactly.
The Kamala Harris and her leadership and what we would expect from her is as a policymaker. I think she has shown that she's been a very progressive and compassionate leader. She has allowed herself to be a part of and in the room in areas as a prosecutor and others that our voice was not there, and she's been oftentimes a lone voice, fighting for those that have not been able to fight for themselves. Has been a strong advocate against, cyber attacks, which during this time we really need. Obviously, she's stood up for home ownership and equity among that for those who have not had the opportunity to, or been victims of predatory lenders and the things like that. So she stood up for those that have needed a voice, and I think that she will continue to do so. I think we saw obviously during her presidential campaign that she obviously paid homage to people like Shirley Chisholm and others. So I think that she's leading with that in that vein as well too. So we're looking forward to seeing her voice at the highest office in the land. And I'm sure she will add great counsel to Joe Biden. She's a very thoughtful person. And just seeing the makeup of the top the cabinet and the others that Joe Biden has appointed, it's very clear to see that a woman's touch has been involved with that those selections. So it's been great to observe, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens over the next 4 years.
And Larry, what kind of feedback have you been getting from your readers there in Sacramento regarding Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, and President Biden?
Sure. Well, I think that I think what we hear mostly locally is there is a great excitement for her and her leadership. And I'll be honest, my view is a little tainted too, because my wife is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I gotta make sure I say the whole thing the right way. So they are definitely supporting her leadership. But I think that what you hear from readers is that in all honesty, let's just get to January 20th and get what's been here behind us so we can start something different. I think we've all been exhausted with the events of the last 4 years. It has worn on us tremendously, and I think that now we're just looking forward to getting getting past this. We recognize what failed leadership actually does look like. Donald Trump said, what's the worst that could happen? We're seeing it. And so I think that folks are really ready to just kind of get past that and really have what you would call the presidential norms. The norms of government, the things that we're accustomed to seeing, even working in a bipartisan fashion at times. It's okay to have, to speak to your base. But I think that, there's times when we got to speak to all Americans. And I think that that's what we'll see moving forward.
Well, we heard that in President Biden's speech today that, he's going to be the president, even for those who did not vote for him, for all Americans, he said. We probably didn't see that over the last 4 years. But Larry, when you heard the speech today, what were some of the things you took out of that speech that you kind of put on a clipboard somewhere?
I think, he used a tremendous line when he called it our uncivil war that we're in the midst of. And I think that to me spoke volumes about where we are as a nation. I think we're in a very perilous time for us. The idea of authoritarianism. I can write it better than I can say it. Has been very concerning, and obviously disinformation and conspiracy theories and these things. And when we don't have a baseline of truth, of facts, then we can't even have a policy discussion. And we have been very much had an uncivil war over the last few years, and this year has just exacerbated it tremendously, with the baseline of the coronavirus and racial upheaval and police violence towards our communities. So I think that that was something I thought was very powerful. He spoke, obviously, it was a unifying speech. I mean, we are the United States of America, and I think for African Americans, more than any other culture in this country, our blood is in the soil of this country, and we have to make sure that we stand up and fight for what we think this country's promise to our people. And we have, when we have stood up and been a part of it, this country has been better for it. And I think he recognized that, because he also spoke about, fighting against white supremacy and bigotry as well too. And I don't know if we've ever heard a president use those terms during his inauguration speech before. So I think, that was something as well that, he recognizes the fact that, were it not for the Black voting bloc, he would not be in office. I think, from what I can tell, I don't know Joe Biden myself at all, but from what I can tell, he seems to recognize that and honor that. He was the vice president for the first Black president. He chose a Black woman as the first vice president, and a woman. So I think that he recognizes that. I think there's a level of sensitivity that may come from his leadership. So we're just looking forward to seeing what can happen.
Yeah, and earlier you speak of that and Biden's his whole makeup. Earlier we played part of an interview he did with Dr. Chavis back in South Carolina early last year during the campaign. And earlier today we had our chair, Karen Carter Richards, on, and she and Dr. Chavis both said that he has always come off as very authentic, and they were very pleased with how he responded to Dr. Chavis's questions. And so there's every reason to believe that what you hear from Joe Biden is what you're going to get.
Well, I look forward to seeing that for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Larry, your perspectives from Sacramento are very, very important. I just want to ask you before we end this segment, the top priority of the new Biden-Harris administration is getting a hold of this pandemic, this coronavirus. And of course, California is one of the states now where there's not only a new variant of the virus, but it seems to be spreading. What do you think can be done? And of course, in the African American community, there's still the issue of whether or not we trust the vaccinations. So from a Black press perspective, how do you see the new Biden-Harris administration enabling the state of California, enabling your community there in Sacramento, the state capital, to get a better hold of the coronavirus pandemic?
Sure. Well, I think that, first and foremost, we have to get our arms around. We can't get back to normal society in any way, shape, or form until we get an understanding and a control on that virus. California, early on, we did an amazing job in the state, despite all of the numbers that were going out. I think it took us 9 months or 8. It took us 8 months to get to 1 million cases in California, and then it took 6 weeks to get the second million.
Wow.
In California. So we had an explosion that was unreal after Halloween in the months of November and December. And so it's been frightening here in California. And I think that, obviously leadership from the federal government is extremely important. We have, people who not only have not necessarily who have been victims of the virus, but oftentimes have been the creators of their own fate with this virus. So you have a lot of people. California is very progressive, but it has some very rural parts of the state, and those that have not necessarily been following mask mandates, have not necessarily been trying to make sure that they're looking out for each other's neighbor in this. So I think we've got to have some federal support that helps make that more of a priority. And obviously, like you said, we've heard from the Biden-Harris administration that this first 100 days is going to be extremely critical, that they're going to work really hard to get 100 million vaccines out. California is going to have to get its share for sure. And our frontline workers and not just frontline workers, but many of the people throughout the state of California, our agricultural community is extremely critical for not just California but for the rest of this nation. So making sure that those who have gone without can make sure and get protected as well too. The African American community, I think. If messaging is correct, if there is a real legitimate effort by the federal administration to make sure and educate our communities, utilizing vehicles like the Black Press to make sure those messages get out, is extremely critical, because, as you say, there's a level of skepticism about whether or not we want to take the vaccines. But I think that for the benefit of our country and our nation, I think we're going to have to find ways to make that happen. And it's incumbent and critical upon the federal government to help make sure those resources are available. We can't shortchange this. We've tried to kind of dance around it without giving the real resources that are needed. And we see where we are. We're a year later. And we haven't had any real success. So
exactly, and it's interesting, Larry. If you look around the world, other countries that don't have the infrastructure of the United States, don't have the wealth of the United States, they're doing much better. Yeah. So it's a real sad commentary that during the last year of the former president, they basically just took their eyes off the prize and kind of just let things unravel. Now, hundreds of thousands of people are going to die as a result of those bad decisions. And now the new Biden-Harris administration, they really got these challenges. We're going to try to be meeting the first of next week to see how the Black press can help get the messaging out, get the information out about the vaccination as they ramp up. Because I think even if they have enough supplies, we have to convince the public to see the safety value, to see the health value of being vaccinated. And I think the Black press is strategically located in all of our communities to help get that messaging out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, vaccines don't save people, vaccinations do, right? So, I mean, it's like having the vaccine is one thing, but unless people are taking it, it's not doing anybody any good. So you got to use trusted messengers. I mean, we're trying to make sure that at our county level and state level that we're trying to make sure that they recognize the importance of using trusted messengers like the Black Press and like the Observer and other Black newspapers across. But, back to your point about the failed leadership of the previous administration. I mean, you think since the election, this nation has gone into our coronavirus numbers have just gone through the roof across the country. And the failed leadership, they were too concerned about conspiracy theories than the reality that was right in front of them of those that have been, dying and getting sick from this virus. I lost an uncle when he passed. He ended up having coronavirus as well too. I talked to a colleague yesterday who thought he had the virus and he thought he was literally going to die because of this. So it's right in front of us, and we cannot ignore it, and we can't play with it. And our community is really struggling and suffering. Not to mention all the economic and the educational and technology components that are happening right now, where we are not a part of that either, and are struggling as a community as well in that regard too.
Right.
Yeah.
So Larry, I can't let you go, Stacey. I just want, before we let Larry go, I just want to remind him of something I said to him when his father passed away. We need that book, man. Your father was a giant of the black press, and in order for us to pass on the legacy to the next generation, we have to document our heroes and our sheroes. And in my book, your father was one of the heroes of the black press, and I hope that we can get that book published because I think those are good news stories, even in times of trouble. You know, we've had hard times before as a people.
Yes.
And we've been able to endure and to rise above those hardships because of the steadfastness of the black press, the black church, HBCUs. But my concern is in 2021, we don't have enough documentation that we can really, it's this one, President Biden said it in his speech today. There's a contest between truth and untruth. There's a struggle between facts and the absence of facts. And I want to just say that when it comes to the black press, I want us to make sure that we don't let our history get revised by people who write about the black press from a distance, rather than from some of the families who are second and third generation publishers. So I just want to tell you, man, you are upholding a great legacy there in Sacramento, and we're very proud of the work that you're doing and continue to do.
Dr. Ben, thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. I should have known that you were going to put me to work before we got rid of this. I should have let Stacy have the last question instead of you, Dr. Ben. You put me to work. But I hear you, and I will work on that. Fortunately, I did do quite a few recordings with Dad, before his passing and everything. And so I've got some of that. I do have to find a way to do it. So, hey, Dr. Ben, you help me make some money so this paper can run smoothly. I get the book done.
Wow, that sounds like a deal. Well, it's been a wonderful day, a unprecedented day for the Black press and Nnpa. We want to thank everyone from our chair, Karen Carter Richards, Jackie Hampton of the Mississippi Link, Denise Rolock Barnes of the Washington Informer, Al McFarland, Insight News, Danny Bakewell Sr. of the Los Angeles Sentinel, Jim Washington of the Atlanta Voice, of course, Larry Lee. We really appreciate you. We appreciate our producers, Enchanter Jackson, Norman Rich, and all the trouble he brings. He's back with us. Claudette Perry, our executive administrator, the staff at Nnpa. They are doing such a great job behind the scenes. So the Black press has been here 194 years, as you know, and the Black press is here to stay. This has been a great day. And always remember this. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 7:30, as we are every weekday. But don't let yesterday take too much of today. Everybody stay safe, wear your mask. Thank you for tuning in with us all day long.
Thank you. God bless the Black press of America.